What if the person who was supposed to protect you your whole life just looked you in the eye and chose someone else's kids over you? Not in a fight, not after an argument, just a cold, casual shrug at the airport gate. Figure it out, sweetie. That's exactly what happened to me when I was 16. And trust me, the way this story ends will make every second of that pain feel worth it. Hey guys, if that opening just grabbed your chest and squeezed, smash that subscribe button right now so you don't miss how this betrayal turns into the most satisfying comeback you've ever heard. And while you're here, drop a quick comment. Where are you watching from today? Chicago, LA, somewhere overseas? I read every single one and it means the world. My name is Elara Thompson. I'm 16 years old, or I was when this nightmare kicked off, and I grew up on the south side of Chicago, where the wind cuts through your coat and family is supposed to be the one thing that never lets you down. Except mine did, spectacularly. It all started with what was supposed to be the best summer of my life. Mom Lisa had been dating this guy Greg for a couple years, married him fast, and suddenly our little two-bedroom felt too small for all his family values. Greg came with money, a big house in the suburbs, and two picture-perfect twins, Mia and Ethan, both 14 and treated like royalty. New iPhones, designer sneakers, trips to Disney. I watched from the sidelines while I wore the same hoodie 3 winters in a row. But Hawaii, that was supposed to be different. Mom promised me, this is for all of us, baby. Quality time. Beaches. You deserve it. I believed her. I packed my one decent swimsuit, my favorite journal, even bought a cheap disposable camera so I could capture our memories. I was buzzing the whole drive to O'Hare. Then we get to the ticket counter. Mom pulls me to the side while Greg and the twins are already scanning boarding passes. Her voice is low, almost bored. Elara, listen, there's only 4 seats. Greg's kids need this trip more. They've been through a lot with the divorce. You're almost an adult. You'll be fine here for a couple weeks. Call a friend or whatever. I just stared. The words didn't land right. Mom, what? You said. She cut me off with that shrug I'll never forget. I did what I had to do. You'll figure it out. Then she turned, linked her arm through Greg's, and walked toward security. The twins didn't even glance back. Just like that, gone. I stood frozen in the middle of Terminal 3, rolling suitcase beside me, phone at 18%, $23 in my wallet, and the boarding pass I'd printed at home now useless in my shaking hand. People streamed around me like I was invisible. My throat closed up, tears burned, but I refused to let them fall in public. Not yet. Disbelief hit first. This can't be happening. My own mother just left me at an airport like an unwanted bag. Then came the hot rush of anger, so strong my vision blurred red. How could she? After everything? All the nights I covered for her, all the times I pretended Greg wasn't replacing me, all the birthdays where the twins got the big gifts and I got a card with $20 tucked inside. I dragged myself to a bench near the windows, watching planes take off, feeling smaller with everyone. Who do I even call? My best friend was at camp. Grandma was in Florida recovering from surgery. Then it hit me like a lifeline thrown into the dark. Dad, Elara Thompson, the man Mom spent years telling me was a deadbeat who walked out when I was 6. I hadn't spoken to him since I was 10, but I still had his number saved in a notes app under, in case of emergency. I never thought I'd use it. My thumb hovered. What if he didn't answer? What if he was just like she said? I pressed call anyway. It rang once, twice. Then a deep, startled voice. Elara. The second I heard him say my name, something inside me cracked open. Dad! It's me. Mom left me at O'Hare. She's gone to Hawaii with Greg and his kids. I don't know what to do. A long pause. Then, soft but fierce, stay exactly where you are. Don't move. I'm coming to get you. I didn't know it then, but that phone call was about to flip my entire world upside down and set the stage for a revenge so clean, so powerful, Mom would never see it coming. Okay. So there I was, 16, stranded at O'Hare like yesterday's luggage, heart still hammering from that shrug Mom gave me. And now I'm on the phone with a man I barely remember, telling him the woman he once loved just ditched his daughter at the airport. The line went quiet for maybe 3 seconds, but those seconds felt like forever. Then he said the 4 words that started pulling me out of the dark. I'm already on my way. I didn't even know what on my way meant from New York. I figured maybe he'd book the next flight out, that I'd be waiting 12, maybe 18 hours. So I found a corner near a charging station, plugged in my dying phone, and tried not to cry in front of strangers. Every time a family walked by laughing, kids dragging suitcases, I felt this sharp twist in my chest. That was supposed to be us. That was supposed to be me and Mom. An hour crawled by. Then two. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Elara looked toward the private aviation side. Gate 5. Black Gulfstream on the tarmac. I'll be waiting at the bottom of the stairs, Dad. Private aviation? Gulfstream? I reread it twice, thinking maybe autocorrect screwed up, but no. I grabbed my suitcase, legs shaky, and started walking past the regular gates, through a quiet hallway I'd never noticed before. Security waving me through with just a nod when I showed the text. And there it was, shiny black jet, stairs already down, and a tall man in a dark coat standing at the bottom, hands in his pockets, staring straight at me like he'd been waiting years for this moment. I stopped about 10 feet away. He looked older than the photos I remembered, silver threading through his dark hair, lines around his eyes, but those eyes were mine. Same hazel, same way they crinkle when he's trying not to show how much something hurts. He opened his arms. I dropped the suitcase and ran. The hug was tight, awkward at first, then fierce. He smelled like cedar and airport coffee. I'm so sorry I wasn't there sooner, he whispered into my hair. But I'm here now. You're never going through that alone again. We climbed the stairs. Inside the jet, it was quiet, luxury, cream leather seats, wood trim, a flight attendant who smiled gently and asked if I wanted water or hot chocolate. I took the hot chocolate. Dad sat across from me, elbows on his knees, watching me like I might disappear if he blinked. The plane taxied. I stared out the window at Chicago shrinking below us. You have a jet? I finally asked, half laughing through tears. He gave a small, tired smile. I have a company, tech startup I built after the divorce. It did well, very well. He paused. Your mom never told you that part, did she? I shook my head. She said you left us broke, that you didn't want to pay child support, that you didn't care. His jaw tightened. She blocked every attempt I made to see you. Changed numbers, moved, told you stories. I sent checks every month anyway, tracked them, kept records. She cashed them, but she never saw a dime of it spent on you. The words landed like punches. All those years I thought we were scraping by because Dad bailed. And she was just pocketing it? For her? For Greg? For the twins? We talked the whole flight. Not the polished version, the raw one. I told him about the favoritism. How the twins got new bedrooms when we moved in with Greg. How I got the pull-out couch in the office. How Mom would snap at me for being difficult while the twins could do no wrong. How I'd started babysitting at 13 just to buy my own school supplies. Dad listened. Really listened. No interrupting. No defending himself, just anger building quietly behind his eyes. When I finished, he said, she didn't just abandon you today, Elara. She's been doing it in pieces for years. And leaving a minor at an airport without a return ticket or a plan. That's not just cruel. In Illinois, that's endangerment. We're going to make sure she understands that. We landed at a private strip outside Manhattan just as the sun was setting, turning the skyline gold. A black SUV waited. Dad's place was a penthouse high above Central Park, floor-to-ceiling windows. Art I'd only seen in textbooks. A bedroom already made up for me with fresh sheets. And a view that made my breath catch. That first night I stood at the window, hot chocolate in hand again, watching the city lights. For the first time in years I didn't feel like an afterthought. I felt seen, but the anger was still there, simmering. And Dad? He was already on the phone with a lawyer friend. Quietly, methodically, collecting every email, every bank transfer, every text Mom had ever sent him begging him to stay away. I didn't know it yet, but the seeds of what was coming were already planted. Mom was about to come home to an empty house and a reality she never saw coming. And when she finally realized I wasn't just figuring it out on my own, that's when the real storm started. You know that moment, when the blindfold finally slips off and you see the whole twisted picture for what it really is. Not just one betrayal, but layers of them, years of quiet, calculated lies stacked like bricks in a wall between you and the truth. That's where I found myself a few weeks after landing in New York, sitting on the edge of a king-sized bed that still felt too big, staring at a stack of bank statements Dad had quietly printed out. Every line item was a fresh stab: spa days in Aspen, designer bags for the twins, plane tickets to Kibo, none of it for me. All paid with money Dad had sent month after month for child support. Money that was supposed to buy me shoes that fit, school lunches, a winter coat without holes. Instead, it bought Mom's new life. I felt sick, not just angry sick, like my whole childhood had been a performance, and I was the only one who didn't know the script. Dad walked in with 2 mugs of coffee, set one beside me, and sat on the floor so we were eye level. "You don't have to look at all of it tonight," he said softly, "but if you want to keep going, I'm right here." I nodded. We kept going. His lawyer, Sarah, a no-nonsense woman from Boston with a voice like gravel and a heart that actually cared, had already started pulling threads. She came over that weekend with a binder thick enough to knock someone out. "Elara," she said, sitting across from us at the glass dining table, "this isn't just emotional cruelty. It's provable financial misconduct. Your mother accepted court-ordered support and diverted it. That's fraud. And leaving you at O'Hare without a return ticket. No guardian, no plan. That meets the threshold for child abandonment under Illinois law. We've got airport security footage time-stamped. You crying on that bench. It's heartbreaking, but it's also evidence." I swallowed hard. "What happens next?" Sarah looked me straight in the eye. "We file for emergency custody modification. Full custody to your father. We sue for restitution of the misused funds plus interest. And we report the abandonment to Child Protective Services. If the DA wants to pursue criminal charges, that's their call. But the civil side alone will hurt her financially." Dad added quietly, "We're also tipping off the IRS. There are deposits that don't match her reported income. She and Greg have some side deals, real estate flips, cash under the table. If they've been hiding that while cashing my checks, it adds up." I stared at the table. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part, the small, scared, 16-year-old part, still wished Mom would call and say it was all a mistake, that she was sorry, that she loved me more than anything. But the phone stayed silent. Her last text, 3 days earlier: "Back next week. Hope you're okay wherever you are." No apology. No "I miss you," just that. So I chose anger over hope. It felt safer. Life in New York started to feel real. I enrolled in a private school mid-semester, small classes, teachers who actually remembered my name. I made a couple friends. Maya, who had her own messed up mom story, and Leo, who played guitar and didn't ask too many questions when I got quiet. Therapy was twice a week. The first session I just cried. The second, I started talking about the favoritism, how the twins got praise for breathing while I got lectures for existing, how Mom would whisper to Greg, "Elara's so moody lately," like I was the problem, not the one watching my place in the family shrink every day. Dad and I built new routines. Sunday mornings he made pancakes, burnt edges, just like I liked. We watched old movies. He taught me how to read a stock chart. Little things that felt huge because they were ours. But underneath it all, the plan moved forward. Sarah filed the emergency motion. A judge in Chicago granted temporary custody to Dad within 48 hours. Mom got served papers while she was still unpacking Hawaiian souvenirs. I wasn't there, but Dad got the call from a mutual friend who still lived in the neighborhood. Mom screaming in her driveway, papers shaking in her hand. Greg standing off to the side looking like he wanted to disappear. She tried calling Dad. He put it on speaker so I could hear. "Alex, this is insane. She's my daughter. You can't just take her." His voice was ice. "You left her at an airport with no way home. You took my money for 16 years and spent it on yourself and your new family. You don't get to play the victim card now." She started crying. I was overwhelmed. Greg's kids needed. Stop. He cut in. "Elara needed you. And you chose them. Live with it." He hung up. I sat there shaking. Not from fear, from power. For the first time, someone was fighting for me. Really fighting. But the best part, Mom still didn't know the half of it. The IRS letter was coming. The criminal referral was in motion. And when she finally realized her perfect little life was built on quicksand, that's when the mask would really slip. You're not gonna want to miss what happens when all those papers hit her doorstep at once. Part 4 is the explosion and the healing that comes after. Stay right here. You ever reach that point where the hurt has burned so long it turns into something else? Something sharper, clearer, almost calm. Like the fire finally ate through the pain and left steel in its place. That's exactly where I was standing, on the steps of the Cook County Courthouse in Chicago, wind whipping my hair, Dad beside me, Sarah a few steps behind with that thick binder still in her arms. Mom was inside already. I could see her through the glass doors smaller than I remembered. No makeup, no Greg at her side. For once, she looked like someone who finally understood consequences. We walked in. The hallway smelled like old coffee and floor polish. My stomach flipped, but I kept my chin up. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth, about saying out loud what she'd spent years pretending didn't happen. The courtroom was half empty. A few people waiting for other cases, a bailiff scrolling on his phone. The judge, a woman with gray streaks and kind but tired eyes, called us up. Emergency custody review had already gone through. This was the big one, the full hearing on abandonment, fraud, and restitution. Mom's lawyer started first. Nervous guy in a cheap suit. He tried the sympathy angle. Miss Reynolds was under extreme stress. New marriage, blended family challenges. She made up her decision in the moment, but she loves her daughter deeply. Sarah didn't even let him finish the sentence before she stood. Your Honor, with all due respect, this wasn't a poor decision in the moment. This was premeditated. Plane tickets purchased for 4 adults and children, none. For Elara, no return ticket, no guardian arranged, no money left. Security footage shows Miss Reynolds walking away while her 16-year-old daughter stood alone crying in Terminal 3. That is not stress. That is endangerment. She clicked the projector. The footage played grainy but clear. Me on the bench, shoulders shaking, wiping my face with my sleeve. Mom glancing back once, then turning away like I was nothing. The room went dead quiet. Even the bailiff looked up. I took the stand next. The judge asked me to tell my story in my own words. I started slow, voice cracking at first, then steadier. I was excited for that trip. Mom promised it was for all of us. I packed everything I had. At the airport, she said there were only 4 tickets. She shrugged, said I'd figure it out. She walked away with her new husband and his kids. I had $23 and a dying phone. I called my dad. The man, she told me, abandoned us because I had nowhere else to go. I paused, looked right at Mom. She wouldn't meet my eyes. For years she told me he didn't care, but he sent money every month. I never saw any of it. The twins got new clothes, vacations, everything. I got yelled at for asking for lunch money. She chose them over me every single day. And when she finally had the chance to prove I still mattered, she left me at an airport like I was luggage she didn't want to claim. Tears came then. Not weak ones, angry ones, cleansing ones. Dad spoke after me. Calm. Factual. He laid out the bank records. Every check cashed. Every transfer that went to luxury instead of me. Sarah handed over the IRS referral notice already in process. Mom's side business with Greg? Under audit now. Assets frozen pending review. When it was her turn, Mom stood. Voice small. I was wrong. I panicked. I thought Elara would be fine. I'm sorry. I love her. Please don't take her away. The judge asked one question. Did you make arrangements for your daughter's care while you were gone? Mom looked down. No. Verdict came fast. Temporary full custody to Dad confirmed permanent. Restitution ordered over $280,000 in misused support, plus interest. Abandonment finding on record. Probation recommended if criminal charges filed. IRS matter separate, but the judge noted it could lead to more. We walked out. Mom tried to follow. Elara, wait. Can we talk? Just us? I stopped, turned, looked at her, really looked. You had 16 years to talk. You chose silence, shrugs, and other people's kids. I don't hate you, Mom, but I don't owe you forgiveness today. Maybe someday. Not today. Dad put a hand on my shoulder. We kept walking. Back in New York, life didn't magically fix itself. I still had nightmares about that airport bench, but they came less. I started college apps, early decision to NYU. Dad helped with essays. We laughed more, cried less. Mom sold the house, moved to a 1-bedroom in the suburbs. Greg left when the money dried up. The twins reached out once, awkward texts, apologies. I answered, we're not close, but we're not enemies. Shared scars, I guess. I started posting anonymously online stories like mine. Not for pity, for connection. Messages poured in. Girls who'd been the leftover kid. Women who finally cut ties. Dads who never stopped fighting. One comment stuck. You gave me the courage to call my own dad after 10 years. He answered on the first ring. That's when I knew the real win wasn't the money or the court papers. It was knowing I wasn't alone anymore. That loyalty can be betrayed, but it can also be rebuilt. Stronger. Realer. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if someone who was supposed to love you chose someone else, instead, hear me. You're not the problem. You never were. And if you ever need to reach out to that one person you think might still care, do it. The worst they can say is no. The best? They show up. In a jet, in a courtroom, in your life. Thanks for staying with me through all 4 parts. This was my story, but it's yours too. If any of it at home, drop a comment. What part hurt the most? What gave you hope? And if you haven't already, subscribe. More stories like this coming. Real ones, raw ones. The kind that remind you you're not broken, you're just getting started. See you in the next one.